I'm Bree. I am the host of Tampa Bay Creative Mornings, and I just want to say thank you for being here. We made it. We're in Tampa. Please welcome our speaker, Shanna. Thank you so much.
Set this here.
So Shanna is going to lead us through. I'll let her talk about the 2 activities that we're doing and leading us through. And with no further ado, it's yours. This is your crew now. And
perfect.
Your clicker.
And this Brittany mic, y'all, is this not like super official and amazing? Let's give it up again. Thank you to Bree so much, the Hotel Haya for providing the space, everybody who's involved today, and thank you guys so much for coming. This is really exciting for me. As a tattoo artist, you know, we're not all bikers and criminals, at least not anymore. We'll talk a little bit about that, like past history today, but one of my main goals has really been to talk about tattoo history and kind of extend it beyond the American traditional style that like we all may be a little bit more familiar with, but there is so much more, and so I'm really excited to share some of that with you today. So we have 2 activities, and as Bree said, y'all will have to get uncomfortable, get up a little bit, but I'm uncomfortable up here and really nervous, so like if I can do it, y'all can do it too. So first activity, I'd like y'all to get into groups of 2 or 3, 4 max. I see some of us have tattoos here, so if you do have tattoos, even if you don't, that's totally okay. But I'd like you to get into groups and just talk about your favorite tattoo. Think about what, you know, how you were feeling, what made you get it. If there was like some profound reason, or even if you just walked in, got the gumball machine, and you're like, that's freaking rad. Like, that's a good reason, no bad reasons here. So discuss amongst yourselves about the ritual maybe that you did beforehand. That could be anything from just even having to do some breath work, making sure you had that Wawa breakfast sandwich before you came in, whatever it may be, and just kind of share your experiences about getting that tattoo. So we'll give you all a few minutes to get together. Don't be too shy. So, wow, you guys certainly aren't like the 18 to 19-year-olds I used to teach that literally wouldn't do shit. So, thank you so much. Everybody seemed like they were having really fun, engaging conversations. So, officially, welcome everyone. So again, thank you for joining me. The presentation today is Inking Herstory, Women's Role in Ritual, or in Tattoo Ritual. So before we begin, I just wanted to give a little bit about myself. My name is Shanna G. I'm the owner of Apothic Tattoo. I've been in the industry for 8 years now, and in another lifetime, as I mentioned, used to teach at a couple different places around here, UT, USF, and HCC. I absolutely loved art history, and no offense to anyone here, I hated academia. I found it, I got into it because it was one of the places that I thought I could, consistently learn, share ideas with people, and connect with them on that deeper level. Much to my chagrin, it wasn't always that. A little bit of that, but sometimes a little bit more about, how much the department is funded. So in tattooing, when I got back to that, it really just opened up those doors for me, and now is providing me a wonderful platform with people like yourselves to be able to share the things that I was told I couldn't study in grad school, that it wasn't an important type of art. Now imagine that. I'm learning about people like Gustave Courbet who are putting up the Salon, de Refusé because they were told their art wasn't appropriate in the main lexicon. But then I'm being told that I can't study tattoos? A little bit ridiculous, right? So, tattooing and owning a shop has now given me the ability to do that. We also are a bit of a spooky shop. It's like getting tattooed at the Haunted Mansion, if that's your vibe. We have an owlry. It's the whole thing. But if you do have any interest in coming to the studio or would like to talk to me afterwards, I would love to do that. So let's get into it. So today's presentation will explore the profound role of women specifically and their use of tattoos in ritualistic practices from the ancient to the modern world. So we're going to really span the breadth of time here in this little short amount of time. So from the beginning of representational art, women have pushed this ancient art form into the practice of tattooing that we know today. So this journey today will highlight the deep connections between tattoos, personal expression, and historical narratives. So this small figurine, some of you may have seen, if you didn't see, I have stickers rolling around here, and there are more. So if you want to grab more, I do have those. One of them is the Venus of Willendorf, which a couple of you came up to me and said, oh, I know this. I saw that in art history. She's a very famous figure. And the Venus of Holyfels is another such figure that is very famous. So this small figurine was unearthed in 2008 by an archaeological team in a cave in, forgive my pronunciation, Schelklingen, Germany. So this is hand-carved from mammoth ivory. It's a small object that would have been easily portable, very good for Paleolithic peoples who were primarily nomadic. That also means that it was something of great importance. To keep that in your pocket, and you're literally trying to fight off lions, tigers, bears, all these different creatures, and somebody had the forethought to keep this with them at all times as this precious object. So initially, when archaeologists looked at this object, they noticed the striations on the figure. These were made purposefully. Now, some, we'll say, not so open-thinking male archaeologists assumed this was excess body hair. But, I know, right? Rude. But that's definitely been debunked as more nuanced research has come about. So this figurine instead, especially with evidence from, has anyone here ever heard of Otzi, the Iceman? A couple of us, yeah. So he's very famous. He has very similar markings where there's parallel lines that were incised on his wrists, stomach, and his legs. So this kind of gives us the potential that this further evidence of tattooing extends almost 80 to 60,000 years ago, which is quite incredible. Otzi is the oldest known tattooed human, and he's about 5,200 years old. But the presence of figurines like this and the potential discovery of older mummies can really just give us an idea of how long tattooing has actually been ingrained in humanity. So ancient Egypt, we'll be kind of starting our journey there and then moving through a few different ancient cultures. So 7 mummies unearthed in Gebelian in the early 20th century remained in the British Museum for almost a century. They were just kind of hanging out there in the archives, and due to a conservation effort, they discovered something really unique about these mummies. 2 of the 7 mummies actually had tattoos. They were previously invisible, but with infrared technology, they were able to actually see the ink beneath the skin. And this discovery was incredible. Both of these individuals are dated between 3351 and 3017 BCE. This is right before the unification of Egypt and the pre-dynastic era. The pyramids of Giza were not even a thought yet. So this pushed back the existence of tattooing in ancient Egypt 1,000 years, which is absolutely incredible. Previous to the mummies, we had figurines such as these that were made in the Middle and New Kingdoms, but we didn't actually have any bodily evidence. You'll start to notice that at least bodies having that evidence is kind of the most concrete, being able to see the tattoo on the individual. So these mummies in particular really show us that the practice started much earlier, but also continued evolving. So to talk about their tattoos a little bit, there were two figures, one male and one female. The male has two creatures. The top one here, you kind of see it, is a bull. The other creature has a name that I'm not going to dare try to pronounce. But both creatures were tattooed on the shoulder. So this is kind of a divergence from Paleolithic and Neolithic tattooing as well, where we go from less like abstract, geometric, to anthropomorphic, to more pictorial imagery. And also being very visible, that you wanted it on the shoulder, you wanted it to be seen because it is giving a statement. And a bull, at least in most ancient cultures, was a sign of male virility, of strength. So this man is clearly trying to exhibit that with his sweet tat. So the female, you can see on one of her shoulders, there is a crook. Common symbols of kingship in ancient Egypt was the crook and flail. If you've ever seen King Tut and his sweet golden sarcophagus, he's got the two objects that are crossed over his chest. That's the crook and flail. And those are symbols of power, of kingship. So this indicates to us that she was of importance. Where she was in society, that is still up for debate, but definitely something that she wanted to be seen so that people knew she was significant. Interestingly, the S-shaped tattoos here, they still don't know what exactly they were for, what exactly they represent. So mummies that were sitting in the British Museum for 100 years had this new discovery with modern technology, and they still have a piece of the story to offer, which is always amazing to me. When I first started art history, I love Egypt, but I was like, that's so passé. Everybody's done it. I'm over it. I want the new thing. But ancient Egypt has been so timeless because it continually gives us these new discoveries. So history is not fixed. Even with Otzi the Iceman, we are still learning new things about him, even in the last few years. So it's always exciting to think of what these mummies can tell us in the future. Right, so the complexity and multifaceted use of tattoos in ancient Egypt is beautifully exemplified by one of the most famous mummies, Amunet. Amunet was discovered at a burial site at Deir el-Bahari, which is basically across the Nile from modern-day Luxor, if y'all are familiar with that region. Amunet was discovered at a burial site, but also was accompanied by other female tattooed mummies at another site known as Deir el-Medina. So this supports the idea that there was more of a widespread practice of tattooing in ancient Egypt. Inscriptions on objects found in her tomb indicate that Amunet was a priestess of Hathor, which is the goddess associated with womanhood and fertility. Some of her tattoos appear to serve a protective and therapeutic role, acting as permanent amulets to aid during pregnancy and childbirth rituals. The tattooed lines and dots on Amunet's arms, thighs, and lower abdomen are considered by many to be literal examples of the design seen on the figurines that we saw on the last slide. So Amunet's tattoos, as the abdomen expanded during pregnancy, the design would shift in shape from the lower back, curving just below the navel. The tattoos are thought to create a visual net and barrier around the womb. This net could symbolize both physical and spiritual protection, encapsulating the unborn child, lost my place, within a sacred boundary. The shifting design would then highlight the uterus, drawing attention to the center of fertility and creation, which, if you've ever studied Egypt, super significant. This shifting design, or the emphasis, could serve to invoke divine blessings for the developing child and reveal a profound understanding of the interplay between the physical and spiritual realms in ancient Egypt. These tattoos were not merely decorative, but served as powerful symbols of protection, fertility, divine favor, adapting to the body's changes and emphasizing the sacredness of life and of motherhood. Another of Amunet's tattoos vividly illustrates the religious and ceremonial significance of her choice of imagery, and also the placement. Very important for placement. So, with throat tattoos, these in our society are often called job killers. Not gonna lie, when about a year ago I turned 35 and I decided to get a face tattoo. I was like, I've been in the industry 7 years. I'm too feral for anything else. It's time. It's time to do it. I still even called my dad, though. I was like, I'm sorry, I'm going to do this. But it's one of those that today in our society still even has a stigma about it. So the fact that she got this on her throat very prominently was a very bold choice. So the tattoo on her throat was highly visible, and its individual pictorial elements reveal the potency of these symbols in her role as a priestess. So the tattoo is known as the Wadjet eye. It features 3 eyes arranged in a pyramidal shape. These eyes symbolize the deities Ra and Horus, both of whom are powerful deities in the Egyptian pantheon. The Wadjet eye is rooted in the myth of Horus, a sky god associated with kingship and protection. According to Egyptian mythology, the symbol is linked to the story of Horus and his uncle Seth, who fought for the throne of Egypt after the death of Osiris, Horus's father. During their battles, Seth gouged out Horus's left eye, but the eye was later restored by Thoth, the god of wisdom and magic. The restoration of Horus's eye symbolized healing and wholeness. This also makes me super grateful for my family fights at Thanksgiving. Definitely not as bad. So between the 2 eyes here, we have the symbol of a Nefer. A Nefer numerically represents the number 0 and is also considered a divine number. And this is also true for, many different cultures across the world. The Nefer in ancient Egypt encompasses the meanings of beauty and of goodness. This symbolism emphasizes the significance of words Amunet would speak during rituals, imbuing her voice with a heightened sense of the divine literally speaking through her. Flanking each side of the top eye, a little bit difficult to see, but these are 2 baboons. These symbols are associated with Thoth. So Thoth is one of the most important deities, arguably the most important in Egyptian mythology, revered as the god of wisdom, writing, science, and magic. His connection to the spoken word and language is particularly significant for Amunet as a priestess who would read and speak during these rituals. Thoth is often depicted as a man with the head of an ibis or as a baboon, and his symbols include the writing palette and reed pens. He is considered the divine scribe, the inventor of writing, and the keeper of knowledge. According to myth, Thoth played a crucial role in maintaining the universe by recording the deeds of the gods and ensuring the correct application of laws and rituals. He is seen as the divine author of all knowledge and the mediator of speech. I'm invoking him right now. In Egyptian belief, words had magical properties. Thoth, as the master of words, had the power to make things happen merely by speaking them. We all talk about, hashtag manifest. Thoth was the original. Thoth's association with the spoken word extended to religious rituals and ceremonies. Priestesses like Amunet would invoke Thoth during these rituals to ensure the correct pronunciation and efficacy of the sacred words and the chants. So, as we said, her throat tattoo as a supposed job killer was actually a job enhancer for her performance. So now let's journey eastward. I'm going to get a sip of this delicious kombucha. Have y'all tried this yuzu pineapple flavor? So good, right? Love it. I did want to try the one with caffeine, but we're already a little shaky. So we'll do that one afterwards. Same. All right, so now we journey eastward. The Greeks, have we ever heard of the Greeks? Yeah, you might know them. The Greeks, a civilization known for their rich culture and philosophical wisdom, encountered the practice of tattooing from various influences. Of course, the Egyptians, but also from the Persians and the Thracians and the Scythians, as well as other nomadic groups that came to the Mediterranean from the Far East. So initially, the Greeks took inspiration from the Persians, adopting tattoos in a rather negative light. They used them to mark slaves and criminals, a practice meant to diminish and to stigmatize. But there's more to the story of how the Greeks understood the use of tattoos. Herodotus, the renowned ancient Greek historian, tells us that the Scythians had a different approach in their body adornments. For them, tattoos were a mark of high status, a symbol of honor, of prestige. So in one corner of the Mediterranean, tattoos were seen as a mark of shame, while in the other, a badge of distinction. This fascinating contrast really shows us how the meaning of tattoos can vary greatly across cultures and how they use them. So I want you for a second to just imagine this comparison. The Greek ideal of a woman was reserved, was modest, confined to the domestic sphere. Definitely not for me, I can't cook shit. Now juxtapose that with the sight of a Scythian woman, fierce and unrestrained, riding into battle atop a powerful horse. Her arms are adorned with formidable creatures that seemingly leap forward in attack and protection as she's riding. The Scythian warrior women represent everything that the Greeks did not think a woman in society should be. A stark contrast that led them to view the Scythians as, quote unquote, barbaric. It's no wonder that these fierce women may have actually been the inspiration for the legendary Amazonian warriors in ancient Greek mythology. The intricate designs of Scythian tattoos reveals a sophisticated society, one that wove powerful symbolism into both their temporary and permanent bodily adornments. These tattoos weren't just decorative. They were emblems of strength, protection, identity, showcasing a culture far more advanced than the Greeks may have perceived. The Princess of Ukok was not directly part of the Scythian culture, but rather belonged to the Pazyryk people. These are often associated within kind of the broader Scythian cultural sphere due to their similarities in their nomadic lifestyle, their art, and burial practices. Give it to this page. We also don't have any mummified remains yet, currently, fingers crossed, of the Scythians, but through the Princess of Ukok, we can get an idea of the tattoo practices of these nomadic cultures. So the princess was discovered in 1993 by Russian archaeologist Natalia Polosmak in the Altai Mountains of Siberia. This is also where Otzi the Iceman was found, interestingly enough. She is believed to be around 2,500 years old. So this dates back to the 5th century BCE. This would have been, right at the height, golden age of ancient Greece. And the Pazyryks were just running around on their horses getting tatted. A little bit sweeter, I think. So one of the most remarkable features of the princess is her intricate tattoos, which include depictions of fantastical animals and complex designs. These tattoos suggest a deep cultural significance, possibly related to her status, her role in society. Her discovery, along with artifacts and tattoos, provide a fascinating glimpse into the life and beliefs of the Pazyryk people, highlighting their cultural sophistication and the connections between the different nomadic groups in ancient Siberia and Central Asia. Visually, we also see a bit of a divergence and advancement in the imagery, even from the ancient Egyptian. These mythical beasts were often used in ancient cultures and embody the best and most fierce qualities of each animal. Lions, we talked about. Bulls, symbolizing power and virility. Lions with kingship and power. And in this case, griffins and deer. The deer in Pazyryk culture is often symbolized a connection to the spiritual realm. The antlers of deer were sometimes interpreted as symbols of branches or trees, representing the axis mundi, or the connection between the earth and the heavens. However, the deer from the Princess of Ukok, definitely not a deer, and I don't mean the cryptid, not deer. If y'all haven't heard of that, it's freaky. But this deer is a little bit different in that it has griffin heads placed at the end of each antler. So that are these little top guys here, as well as somewhat of a more griffin-style beak. Griffins were celebrated across multiple cultures as symbols of strength, of majesty, and were powerful guardians and protectors. Mirroring the body placement seen on Scythian warriors, the Princess of Ukok proudly displayed this mythical creature on her upper arm, which would have been for all to see. All right, so now we're jumping much more forward in time, getting out of the ancient world, and we're coming to America in the late 19th and early 20th centuries to see how the circus actually played a pivotal role in advancing the tattoo industry as we know it today. Many people may know the names of Sailor Jerry or Paul Rogers, but prior to these formative men of the American traditional tattoo style, there were powerful women who seized opportunities that were rarely available to others at the time and made their lifelong careers in tattooing. So before the circus sideshows, European peoples were fascinated with individuals who unfortunately were forcibly brought back from voyages to lands previously unknown. One of these famous figures is the man you see here, known as Prince Gioli. He was bought as a slave by William Dampier and brought back to Britain around 1690. Broke and having nothing to show for his voyages, Dampier capitalized on exhibiting the prince against his will. This image is actually an original poster that was advertising the prince and his extensive tattoo work. These designs were thought to have magical powers that could literally repel venomous creatures like snakes and scorpions. You can see all these little critters are fleeing from the man. Dampier would say that he doesn't believe that this was actually real because Prince Gioli was massively afraid of snakes. So, but it works better for the advertisement. Unfortunately for the prince, he would succumb to the fate of many individuals brought to Europe and died of smallpox as his body had not formed a natural immunity approximately 3 years later. Luckily, though, Westerners began to kind of abandon the forcibly removing people from other cultures for their viewing pleasure and started to marvel at those who actually chose to exhibit their bodies. So the emergence of sideshows came about in the early 19th century to provide a sort of complimentary event to the main events that were going on in the big tops. Prior to these spectacles, tattooing was mainly seen on sailors, military men, criminals. Definitely a divergence in modern culture, as we see. An early form of this public tattoo show is actually thought to be when sailors would come into port, they would go to the local taverns and revel, they would tell stories of their sailing, of their adventures, and they would share the tattoos that represented those adventures. Nora Hildebrandt is known as being the first tattooed woman in American history. Some say that she's the first tattooed woman in history, but I think Amunette would argue with that. She personally claimed that she was held hostage by Sitting Bull, an important leader of the Native American culture, and that she was tied to a tree to be forcibly tattooed by her father. She told how they were promised freedom if her father tattooed his warriors. But one of them accused him of an intoxication attempt, so the chief changed his mind. And he ordered her father to tattoo his daughter from head to toe. According to Nora, after working 6 hours a day for a year, he completed 365 designs and was then killed for having accidentally broken the needle. Right. Her testimony continues that after the traumatic event, she was miraculously saved by General George Crook, and after a few days while she was recouping in the hospital, she was found by Adam Forepaugh, owner of the Adam Forepaugh Circus Company, and Mr. W.K. Leary, a publicist and agent who worked for several circuses, and convinced her to perform in their show. It was from this point on that she was touted as the one and only tattooed lady. While the story she presented incites intrigue, it is widely believed that she fabricated her own legend as a way to avoid being branded as a pariah. Though the general public enjoyed seeing the tattooed body and marveling at it, society as a whole still had condemned basically the practice, especially for women, deeming it highly inappropriate behavior. Her tale of forcible tattoos was a way to kind of bypass this prejudice. Her example set the precedent for women's success, whether true or not, in the tattoo sideshow, and they often even upstaged the male attractions. So the circus provided women with opportunities that others did not have. Often these exhibitions paid more than other jobs. They afforded the ability to travel, and these appealing aspects brought in women we know today as industry leaders that paved the way for other female tattooers. Maud Stevens Wagner was known as the first female tattooer. She originally left her home as a teen to join the circus and perform trapeze and contortionist acts. It was through her career that she met Gus, which is a name I love, little Gus. Gus not only had many tattoos, but he also knew how to tattoo. He taught Maud the craft, and she very quickly picked it up, eventually becoming a world-renowned tattoo artist until her death in 1961. Both Maud and Gus began tattooing full-time and eventually broke away from the circus, establishing that as their main profession. They would also have a daughter who continued their legacy as a female tattooer, but interestingly, she actually never got any tattoos, which is unique. Jackie Gresham is another female figure that has made her mark on the tattoo industry. Now at age 77, she has been tattooing for over 4 decades and was the first Black female tattooer and shop owner. I actually had the pleasure of meeting her in New Orleans. She is in her 70s and has more swagger than I ever hoped to have. She just walked down the convention aisle with these beautiful plugs with her cane and was just the absolute sweetest lady. She actually moved to Louisiana from Michigan after she was laid off in 1976 by General Motors. So her daughter now runs Art Accent, which is the oldest tattoo shop in New Orleans. Gresham really pushed the possibilities of tattooing on darker skin types, and this is something that her daughter avidly practices and promotes today. Jackie was a pioneer who not only broke into an industry that was heavily male-dominated, but also predominantly white. She has tattooed thousands of people, including a member of the KKK. In an interview in 2020, Jackie stated, quote, "It was interesting to talk to somebody from a Klan's person that would allow a black person to tattoo them. And the reason why he allowed me to tattoo him, or so he said, was because I gave a good tattoo." Gresham believes that a good tattoo can help break down those racial barriers while also inspiring young artists at the same time. The last figure that we'll look at today, you may have seen her on the cover of Vogue. She, especially in the last few years, has gotten a lot more recognition. But this is Maria Agé. She is another pinnacle in the tattoo industry and learned the art of batok from her father when she was 16 and has been tattooing the peoples of the surrounding villages and tourists ever since. Women in her culture are tattooed to enhance their beauty and fertility. It is said that the women believe while none of their earthly or ritually possessions can accompany them to the afterlife, the markings on their body will pass with them through the veil. She was the first and only female Mam Babatok of her time and is known for preserving the traditions of implementing ancestral sacred symbols of her people. Some of her relatives and other female members have fortunately picked up the practice, further preserving the cultural heritage. She is also, as you may notice, 107 years old, right? She must be drinking the mother kombucha because I don't know what it is. And she is still tattooing. You can still go get a tattoo from her. Now, she typically will only do her signature, which is 3 concentric dots. That's about what you get out of her. But you know what? Like I said, I'm 36, and thinking about tattooing at 107, let alone being alive, is magnificent. So let her do her dots. That's great. So today we've seen how women from all over time and various cultures have contributed to the tattoo ritual and influenced how we perform the craft today. It is these pioneers that helped us push what is possible, despite societal judgment and gatekeeping, giving contemporary female tattooers the foundations to continue evolving and changing the world through art. Thank you.